guys, welcome to our podcast, First Name Basis. My name is Sid, and I'm a software engineer at TribalScale.
My name is Kari, and I'm a product manager here at TribalScale. So today, Sid and I are going to be talking about voice technology. We've been lucky enough to work on 5 of these projects combined, both on as Alexa skills and like Google Actions. But we worked on one together, which was definitely my favorite. It was a skill to allow users to buy flowers completely by voice with no account linking.
Yeah, it was my favorite too, to be honest. It was an interesting project. And I remember we implemented the Amazon Pay while it was still in beta. So that was interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So we here at TribalScale, we have a really great relationship with Amazon. And this means we get access to beta features early.
Yeah.
So we got to do Amazon Pay. We use some slots, like address slots.
And then we had the first name recipient slot, stuff like that, which was still in beta. And thanks to the Amazon partnership with TribalScale, we got the early access to that, which is pretty good. The interesting part about that app that we built that I like the most was changing the order of the address and changing the address components themselves.
Right.
Like you can go back in the app. You don't have to cancel your order. You can go back in the app. You can change your address. You can change your recipient name. That was pretty cool.
It was very cool. Yeah. And like I said, we really were one of the first big brand names to produce an app that you can like purchase something without account linking.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It was very cool. But okay, so we've talked about a little bit about Alexa.
Yeah.
What about Google, like the Google Home and all of the new devices that have come out with that?
Yeah.
What do you think, like what are the differences and which do you think is going to last longer?
Okay, so I think Google Home is catching up to Alexa. Alexa had a pretty good head start for like 3 years before Google Home.
Right.
But Google Home is catching up. And I feel like Google's natural language processing and understanding engine is making a difference.
Totally.
Yeah.
When you think about it, like Google has the power of their search engine, all of that data to create their like NLU.
Yeah.
Whereas Amazon's database is not as big, and you can tell that actually. Like Google Home's, you can tell that it's learning faster, whereas Alexa it mismatches words more often. Yeah,
I feel like when I use Alexa, it's not as natural as Google Home.
Definitely.
You know, and I do feel the difference when I use Google Home on a daily basis. Like I don't even use Alexa anymore. I have both the devices.
Really?
Yeah. So Google Home has much more integrations with the devices itself, like Google Chromecast, Android TV, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Alexa is quite there yet in terms of device integration.
Right.
Alexa has like a lot more other devices, but not like entertainment devices connected to Alexa itself.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But when you have to order flowers, you still use your Alexa device, right?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want you to do it the other way.
But I think Google is gaining much more edge in terms of multi-surface capabilities.
Right.
By which I mean like you can start adding your items to your cart on Google Home. And I know Google doesn't have like pay option right now in Google Home.
Fully voice pay. It does not have that yet.
Yeah, it doesn't have that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can take the conversation from Google Home to your cell phone and you can pay over there, which is still pretty cool.
Yeah, so I remember we were looking into Google Pay for a while.
Yeah.
And we wanted to try to do this similar experience on the Google Home. But we discovered that you have to switch to your mobile device or web app to complete the purchase.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think that might be a better user experience.
Yeah.
We said we use these address slots and first name slots, but it is like quite laborious to be inputting your full address.
Yeah.
And also when you have a name like Kari or Sid, I think Sid did pretty well, but my name is definitely tricky for these voice devices. Like maybe Google is doing it the better way.
Yeah, I think it requires a little bit of learning on the technology side as well. It takes time to get to that level where you can feel like a human talking to you. Yeah.
When we're that you brought struggle.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that it's interesting that you brought up the like making it seem more human-like.
Right.
Because something I've noticed is that younger people already know how to speak to these devices, and in a way that it's easy for them to comprehend what they're saying.
Right.
So I think in the future, like not just these devices are going to get better, but people are going to be much more aware about like how do I speak to a computer so that it understands me.
True. Yeah, I think that's what Google Home and Alexa both are like trying to do right now, is to create an ecosystem. And they're trying to do it slowly. Like you can't push everything out of the door right away.
Right.
So they're trying to like push all the changes slowly so that people can adjust to these devices. Yeah, that's what my thought process is around it. What would you say, like, if I want to build a skill for the first time, what would you say I should do?
That is a great question. When I got to TribalScale, I had never built on voice, truthfully. And I was put on 2 of these projects at the same time, which was great. A steep learning curve, but learned a lot. And some of the things I always tell people is that make sure you build that relationship with Google or Amazon early, so that you know, like the certification processes are still evolving for sure.
Right.
And it's very useful to be able to know what direction they're going earlier in your process than at the very end.
I agree with that. And I think the turnaround time has improved a lot. It used to be, I remember it used to be like a month for us. Now they do that same certification process within a week, which is pretty good. But I think that's something the first time skill builder should know.
Definitely need to take into account how long your certification process is when you're thinking of timeline.
100%.
Another thing I like to tell first-time builders is to make sure you're careful when you're testing. So when you're testing for voice, you have to consider both your business logic, but also the NLU, NLP. So your business logic might be perfect, but if you are trying to get users to input a very difficult word that consistently it gets wrong, it can really screw things up.
True. I can speak from developer's perspective as well. Not just developer, but designer as well. Since we don't have any user interface, right? We only have the voice interface. So you don't want to overwhelm user with a lot of data at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You want to take it slow, and you want to give user all the help they need at every time in the app. So they can say help, they can look for the options that they have, and they should be able to get those options. Otherwise, the experience for the user is going to be sour.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, no, we still don't have any questions. Just to let everyone know that's listening, you can send in questions and we'd be happy to answer them. I was going to bring up a very funny testing issue I had also.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we were building a Google Home app, and we were users had to say world free, which is actually the name of a NBA basketball player.
Oh, okay.
And the NLU was actually hearing it as be free.
Oh, okay.
Like it was matching to be free, which is actually an exit intent that it's built into Google Home. So every time someone would answer world free, they'd get the exit like response. So like, thank you for using this app. Goodbye.
That's a very edge case.
Exactly. Like, I mean, how would you think that world free is going to be free?
Right.
So you need to, and we wouldn't have figured that, we didn't actually figure it out at first because we were just testing by writing things like the like web input.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure you're testing with your voice also.
Right. So the actual testing on the device, not just the simulator.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I like that.
And I feel like we had other testing. Another big learning we had was that for Google Home, you have to be able to push it to the Google Assistant as well.
Right.
And we had used these, like a template that had some complicated imaging happening on the Google Assistant. And then it actually, we broke something during that, and then we failed certification because we weren't testing on the Google Assistant.
Okay. That's what I like about Google, to be honest. Like when you're building app for Google Home, you're also building app for Google Assistant. So it's not just the people who have these devices at home, but all the Android users can use your app, which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Speaking of these devices are always listening. Don't you think it's a privacy concern?
Right. I was trying to remember what our next topic was, truthfully. Privacy is really an interesting subject for these. People are very concerned about it. I know that when we built this e-commerce app together, we were storing like addresses and first names in AWS.
Yeah.
So I think we all trust AWS to hold that sort of information, and we do it in a PII compliant way. But the fact that these devices might always be listening is different.
Yeah, to be honest, I remember an incident which happened in May 2018 in Portland. So there was a family who had these devices at their home, like Alexa devices, and accidentally Alexa heard the wake-up word Alexa in the conversation, in the background conversation, right? And it triggered on itself. And the subsequent conversations were recorded as a message and sent to one of the contact lists, one of the names in the contact list, which is pretty scary, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that we have any malicious intent here.
Right.
It's just a software glitch which invades the privacy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what happens if your name is Alexa? You must always.
That's an interesting case.
That's when you go for Google Home instead of.
True, but I think you can still like configure Alexa to listen to something else as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you can configure Echo or some other keyword as well, which is pretty interesting.
I think that's a pretty new feature.
Right.
Like
I think so. Yeah, that's pretty new to the developers as well. Yeah.
Year or so. Do you have anything else to add about security?
I don't think so. I'm good with that.
Actually, something we were talking about earlier was Amazon resisting, like the police asking Amazon to be able to hear the conversations when devices were in like a crime scene.
Yeah.
And Amazon is saying no, that's like.
Yeah, that's invading the privacy of their customers.
Right.
And I stand with Amazon in this scenario because you never know like what's on that device, what's the conversation was about, right? You don't want to reveal that conversation because it will discourage people from using these devices. So that will eventually kill their business as well. Right? That's discouraging technology.
Yeah, definitely. And that actually brings up a good next point. What do you think the future of voice is?
Interesting. Yeah. So I think voice assistants, voice devices, all these voice technology have a very bright future, right? It's the beginning right now. Like we're not even there where we can comfortably talk to devices yet. But I think the future is very bright. As in, I know like right now I can use voice assistant for calendar invites to read them or calendar events. Like my Google Home will read all the events that I have coming up. But I know Google is developing something which will set the appointments for you, set the events for you.
Right.
So you won't have to like call for a haircut appointment. Like you can basically tell your assistant, Google Assistant, oh, I just want to go for a haircut appointment on this date between this time, and the assistant, the AI behind that, will make the call for you, which will be more human-like. That's upcoming in future, I believe. Yeah.
Interesting.
What do you think? Your thought process around
for the future of voice, like I believe that voice is not going to take over typing and reading it's not going to take over everything. Like there are certain use cases it's really good for, like limited mobility people and people in manufacturing, or like you were just talking about hairdressers. Maybe you're cutting hair and you want to like schedule your appointments at the same time.
Right.
When your hands are busy. Also, until self-driving cars are created, driving is a great use case for voice. And
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Right now, as I see it, only luxury cars have that feature.
Right.
So what if we have this feature in all the cars, right? That would be pretty interesting, right? That's a pretty good use case, like aftermarket product that Alexa or Google Home can bring to these cars.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
And we just actually won a hackathon at the Auto Mobility conference. We have a team in Los Angeles that entered this hackathon and came up with a skill, I guess, that allows people to order groceries and coordinate pickup and pickup of the groceries all by voice using existing APIs, and they actually won the hackathon.
Amazing stuff. One thing that I do see coming up in future regarding voice is contextual understanding,
right?
And the personalized responses. So right now, if you talk to these devices, you will hear the response back, right? And you will hear only one response back, right? You won't hear any subsequent response. Or if you try to talk to the device about the same thing in the next 5 minutes, that device won't retain the context, right? That's the problem right now. That's why it's not more human-like. So I think that's something coming up. That's what we're going to see, like contextual understanding, personalized responses, and these devices are going to understand our habits, our patterns, and that's how they're going to recommend ads or new things that we may like.
Yeah, I think that like personalization right now is a pretty like hot topic in all platforms. What else was I gonna say? And I'm glad you brought up advertising as well, because I think that will make or break these systems as well. Like I mean, at least the at-home devices, they have to have some sort of like financial means. So how are they gonna? I know that Amazon has integrated some like playing ads, and there's e-commerce, but how they do that, I think, and how that affects the user experience will really impact the future of voice.
Totally agree with that. Totally. I think we have a comment.
Actually,
a question. Yeah. So what is the adoption of apps on voice devices for apps?
For apps?
Yeah.
So, what is the adoption of apps on voice devices for apps? So I think maybe this person is saying, if I take my mobile app and then port it over to a voice skill or action, I mean, there are definitely consequences of that. Like, will you lose traffic on your mobile app, and will it move over there? And like, what is the uptake of that?
Yeah.
Truthfully, I don't know the answer to that, but I can say that you definitely don't. A lot of clients come to us and say, we want to take this mobile app and we want to make it a voice app. And there are, let's say, 15 features on the mobile app.
Yeah.
That's really hard to make work gracefully in a voice skill or action.
Right.
So we always recommend paring it down and maybe splitting it into separate apps. And that might be a better. Do you know what the adoption rates? I do know that it's like 60% of youngish people have used a voice device.
I had no idea about that. That's pretty interesting.
But I think this is changing rapidly, and
more and more people are joining in to use these devices, you think?
Yeah, and I also was just reading an article, though, that young people are quick to pick it up, but they don't use it very regularly. Whereas an older crowd is a little bit slower to pick up, but once they start using it, they're more
reliant on it.
Dedicated users. So
interesting.
Yeah, so I mean that's all I had to say. We are open to more questions if people want to send us more. Sid, do you have anything else to
I don't think so. That was a pretty good discussion.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening to our podcast on voice technology today. Stay tuned for our next First Name Basis podcast.